We do have protests within the city of Kherson, which was taken over by the Russians. We do have protests within Kharkovka, another city that was taken over by the Russians. And the latest also in terms of business indicates that payment giants MasterCard and Visa are actually stopped operations within Russia. But then the Russian central bank came out and said, well, ordinary Russians can continue making payments in that regard because they are actually working on a domestic national payment system. The latest also indicates that an ounce of gold has increased. This is business to over $2,000. That is how bad the situation is unfolding as a result of the impact of the Ukrainian war, Russia involved. That is the latest coming in. So let's focus on our women entrepreneurs, business locally here in Uganda. John Walugembe is here. We'd like to talk about the plight of the women entrepreneurs who do not have access to finances in its entirety. They do not have access to many of the factors that they need to ensure that their businesses are a success. So John Walugembe, the president of the Federation of SMEs, is here. He will be joined by Connie Kachihembo, the CEO of the Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association Limited, and that is via Zoom later on. But let's first talk to John Walugembe, who's physically here with me in the studio. Very good morning, John.
Good morning, Romeo. How are you?
COVID-19 reshaped the way we do business, John.
Very.
And I'm telling you, we've been having these conversations even at the tail end of 2021, the beginning of 2022, we had these conversations. So paint for us a picture of how the situation is unfolding right now with Russia attacking Ukraine, COVID-19 also, putting pressure on the economy and also so many other factors. Paint for us a situation, John Walugembe, the women entrepreneurs in this country.
No, do you want me to first address the Russian issue and the context, or you want me to?
Let's not go to Russia. Let's say.
Okay,
yeah.
so
yes.
In this country, about 58%,
yes.
First of all, 90% of the entire private sector are micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises.
Fair enough.
Of these, about 58% are run by women.
Indeed.
Now, the challenge is women tend to own the smaller ones, the micro businesses. Those women who are selling bogo on the street and so on. As the businesses get bigger, you see more men take charge. So that's already a problem. So it means women are stuck in running very informal outfits at the bottom of the pyramid. However, Uganda is one of the of only 7 countries in Africa that have achieved what we call gender parity in issues of women entrepreneurship. So in terms of numbers, if you just look at numbers, we are doing well. But in terms of the quality of businesses that they are running, there is a problem.
So the quality of the businesses, the fact that the businesses are so informal, it makes it hard for them to access loans in the banking system.
Not just loans. Their businesses tend to be run, they tend to be survivalist. Survivalist means I run this business to meet my needs, to pay fees, to pay rent, and that's it.
Minus record keeping.
Exactly. So they are not very growth-oriented businesses in any way.
I see.
And that I think is a problem. And because they're not growth-oriented, it means that they find it hard, A, to access financing. Number 2, they find it hard to scale. Number 3, they find it hard to create employment. Now, we don't want to blame the women entrepreneurs themselves because there are also additional systemic problems that limit.
Let's break them down.
That limit the potential of women in business. One, the number of societal constraints. If you look at ownership of assets, for instance, it's very difficult for women to own land, not because it's illegal, but it's just difficult society-wise. Many men feel threatened by women putting land titles in their own names. So it's either jointly owned or it's in the name of the man. So this makes it difficult for the woman to go and get money from a bank or financial institution on her own. At some point, she might need consent. It's not part of the requirements, but practically speaking, that's what happens.
So if yeah, go ahead.
So that is a serious that's a serious barrier.
Indeed, John.
Because, but also that's related to the fact that many financial institutions insist on collateral and also insist on land.
Indeed.
There are some measures that government has put in place to address that, and part of that is what you have the shuttles mechanism, where people can use movable assets to borrow. But that has not, the uptake has been lots of.
Like a phone, a
like
laptop.
a phone, like earrings,
I see.
like this and so on and so forth. That's meant to diversify the range of collateral against which.
So you're telling us right now that women entrepreneurs are incapacitated to access these loans simply because they do not have security to be offered as collateral?
Very true.
Okay.
Very true. So, and then the other issue is the skill levels. The skill levels, if you examine the level of education among women entrepreneurs, it tends to be lower compared to their male counterparts.
I see.
So with that skills gap, it means that it keeps them running very informal kind of outfits. Besides, the kind of business development services that are provided on the market tend to be very academic and logical and so on, which is not the way women are wired. Women prefer more psychological-based business training as opposed to the focus on financial management, on just bookkeeping and things of the sort. So it means we need to also reorient the kind of offers that we have that are meant to support the growth of these businesses.
And like you say, John Walgembe, women are the majority entrepreneurs within this country, 58 out of the 90% of the SMEs in this country.
Correct.
What does that mean to the country? The fact that the majority of the entrepreneurs do not have the money to develop their businesses and so forth. So in translation, what does that mean to the economy?
No,
if you're not supporting the majority of the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so it means we need to critically think, what can we do? And it's not that we have not done anything. Simply means that we need to do more.
Let's first talk about the effect of that on the economy.
No, the effect is huge because it means that you're holding back the potential of a large group of people that can support the economy to create jobs.
Indeed.
I don't think it's intentional in any way, but I think the structure of our economy and the structure of our society in many ways creates barriers for women. If you also look at sometimes the legal and legislative framework and you look at some of the laws, particularly local governments that are put in place and the enforcement and so on, those tend to be in many ways skewed against women. And also the fact that in terms of education system, we try to look at some professions as ring-fenced for men. If we are talking about the oil and gas sectors, no, that's the main thing. If you look at engineering, that's the main thing. If you look at running a very big business, that's the main thing. So we need to support women to break
even when it
barriers.
comes to the bidding processes, a woman wants to work on the big project and she's
but
going to bid at the PPDA. You find that it's going to the man simply because the man has the financial muscle in that regard.
Or some guy feels, oh, she won't be able to deliver because, that's why I talked about those kinds of stereotypes.
So here you have majority of the women entrepreneurs, majority of the entrepreneurs being women. But when it comes to procurement, it only accounts for 2% when it comes to women.
Correct. Those are that's why I told you, because they are stuck in the informal net at the bottom of the pyramid. So if you keep people stuck there and a huge percentage of them, it means the benefits are only accruing to a few. That's why I'm saying the result is the bigger the business, the more likely it is that it will be owned or run by a man.
I see.
Yes.
Patriarchal nature of our society.
Correct.
All right, let's also talk about why women in business, find challenges when it comes to sustainability. The business seeing its first birthday and so forth, they never get that luxury. What are some of the risk factors behind that?
No, the women face additional challenges.
Sustainability.
No, before I handle the sustainability question, there's also the issue, what we call the care burden.
The care burden.
Yes.
Unpaid work.
Yeah, unpaid work. So, I mean, we are not saying women should be paid for everything, but they simply have more responsibility, most of which is not fairly compensated. So if a woman is running a business, she has to leave at 3 p.m. to go back home to ensure that she prepares for supper for the children and for the husband and so on.
Remember, before even going for the business, she had to cook breakfast.
She has to cook breakfast. So she arrives late, then she has to leave early.
Indeed.
So it means that society has constrained her from putting in as much time as her male colleagues. So inevitably her business may end up being less profitable. Not because she's a poor entrepreneur, but because of the burden that she has to, societal burden that has been placed on her. So that's an additional constraint. Now, turning to the issue of sustainability, As I've said, the current state is that most women-owned MSMEs are survivalist in nature. They are micro, they are small, they are informal. Now, such businesses by their very nature mean that they find it hard to scale. A, because they find it hard to access the needed financing at the right rates. Number two, because they lack the skills internally to be able to scale their businesses. Then the other thing is that they lack markets because they are operating at within a very small, what I would call at a micro level. They'll find it hard to take advantage of the opportunities, both local and international.
Do you also think, John Walugeme, that the reason why we haven't been able to help women entrepreneurs might be actually because we do not know the number of entrepreneurs in this country? We do not have data.
Yes, that's true. That's true. No, we do not have reliable data. There has been efforts, of course. The Federation has its own statistics. The Bureau of Statistics does its own business census once in a while, but we cannot accurately know the number of women-run SMEs at any particular time, partly because many of them are informal in nature. So it's, even if we made an effort, it would be hard to come up with an accurate figure. So the very best will be estimates.
All right, that is John Walugeme, the president of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. On Zoom, we also do have Connie Kachihembo. She is the CEO for the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Association Limited. Very good morning, Connie Kachihembo. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to you, and thank you for the invitation.
All right. Please help us shine a light on the plight of the women entrepreneurs within this country. I understand you are also part of efforts in November of 2021, courtesy of the Uganda Development Bank, to finance over 2 million women entrepreneurs. You can also bring us up to date with the latest information surrounding that exercise, as you actually also paint a light on the plight of the women entrepreneurs during this COVID-19 pandemic. Connie Kachihembo. Connie?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm not sure if I heard everything, but tell me.
Yes, Connie Kachihembo, let's talk about the plight of the women entrepreneurs.
Okay, thank you so much once again for the invitation. Uganda Women Entrepreneur Association, we are an umbrella association that brings together women in this country who are basically engaged in business, and we do engage a range of women, starting from informal to formal sector. I had my colleague Walgembe talk about a few things, which I do concur. The situation of women in this country who are engaged in business is still not yet the best, I can say. There's a lot of things that we need all the stakeholders to come together and we support the women entrepreneurs. Whereas we have been known that many women are actually engaged in entrepreneurship, they start businesses, but of course we have had a lot of research done that confirms that their businesses do not last longer. And one of the
Connie Kachihembo, you are telling me that you have evidence or data to prove that many of their businesses were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, you were affected by that glitch right there in the connectivity. But please continue giving us information on the plight of the women entrepreneurs in this country. Also, in November of 2021, you also worked with the Uganda Development Bank to actually finance 2 million entrepreneurs. We'd like to also get an update on that exercise. Go ahead, Connie.
Able to hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you loud and clear, Connie. Go ahead. All right, there we are still. Okay. Go ahead.
So just trying to say that, oh my God, I hope you can.
Yes, we can hear you, Connie Kachihembo. Go ahead. All right, we are talking about the plight of the women entrepreneurs. Yes, it is callous that we do not know the actual number or data of the women entrepreneurs within this country. But then the Uganda Development Bank had put aside some money, you know, to help finance these women entrepreneurs. 100 million or 50 million was up for grabs for many of these women entrepreneurs. But individually, they couldn't access this money, and they were saying the criteria followed to access this money was negating their ability to actually finance their projects. So UDB, to begin with, let's interrogate that, John Walugembe. They put money within UDB, the government, and they say it's for the SMEs. But how are you putting money in UDB and you're saying the loan portfolio is 100 million? Which kind of SME can afford 100 million Uganda shillings for a business?
No, I think what you're answering yourself, because you've said UDB and Uganda Women Entrepreneurs agreed to come up with an arrangement that is friendly for women through clustering them. So whereas it's 100 million, but women can access small amounts, you know.
After they realized that the women after they realized that the women couldn't access the money individually, because as an individual with a business of 20 million, I can't really go for a loan of 100 million Uganda shillings. So UDB and Uganda Women Entrepreneurs Association Limited, they said, let's cluster them. 10 to 20 people. If they can share their 100 million and find a way of paying it back, it will be, you know, a good way to go. So why is it that UDB never knew that these SMEs couldn't afford these hefty sums of money?
No, when a sinner repents, you shouldn't blame them for what happened in the past. So I think the fact that UDB was able to realize the mistake and address it is good enough. And I think, just to emphasize, this is not the only thing. Government is also doing more. For information, there's something called the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program under the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, where they also seek to support women still with loans and things of the sort, you know. And it's one of the programs that women were up in arms against being integrated under the parish model, you know. So I think that is also another good program that government has piloted. I'm not sure how effective it has been, but at least effort has been made.
All right, John, we do have Connie Kajihembo. She's back online. We've rectified that feed. And very good morning once again, Connie Kajihembo. Yes, we are still with you. Talk to us about the plight of the women entrepreneurs within this country. Go ahead. You were saying you do have evidence that they are being affected.
Thank you so much. I just heard you have a conversation about the UDB fund, the special project that the women are about to enjoy. And UWIL is one of the institution that is trying to mobilize about 2 million women. And this is what we're doing, because the ceiling of this money starts from 50 million to 900 million. And we know that most of our members are micro in terms of their businesses. So we are doing two things with them. First of all, we are trying to do what we call the business advisory service. We want them to be aware that even when they get this money, their processes, they must have the right skills. And we're also trying to handhold them, because we realize that certain things that are required by the bank, they may not have them, but they have the capacity to have them. So we are doing that, but also creating the awareness about the opportunity. I must say that right now we have seen some women getting very interested. Almost 400 members have already expressed interest. Some have already got this money. And we are trying to encourage our women to get into groups so that they're able to access this money. The beauty with this engagement with UDB and UWIL, that the funds that are getting are affordable, more affordable and more flexible. We have engaged the bank to the extent that even when you don't have a bank account, you can provide evidence using your actually been transacting in your business. So for us, it is very, very critical that this engagement is going to uplift the lives of women in this country, but also seeing that they get back to their footing in terms of running their businesses. Again, this opportunity has helped us to see that the women are changing strategy from what they think can't work, from what they learned when they were in COVID lockdown. They realized that certain businesses cannot strive in such pandemic situation. So a lot of them are reorganizing themselves to do businesses that are viable, that can resist it in any event that happens like COVID how it did, and they're able to continue growing their businesses. And for us, that is the footing, and want to appreciate the government definitely on that aspect, because it's the capital that has always been the challenge. We are still trying to also address the aspect of information gap. among the women entrepreneurs. And what he will is doing right now is setting up a regional information center. We have set up an app. We want to see that woman who is selling tomato without a smartphone accessing instant trade information, getting to know what to do. We have a couple of our members who are also involved in cross-border trade. We also want them to have instant information as they plan to cross the country and do business and enjoy the privileges of East African integration. So all that is being done in preparation also to coincide with the opportunity that the government is putting in place for the women entrepreneurs. That doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. There's still quite a number of issues to handle. There's still quite a big gap between the men and the women who are engaged in business. The competition is still very big, and we still believe that we need all the stakeholders to be part of us and mobilize the women and educate them. Many of them, a few things that you're lacking, they're not compliant in certain things because they don't know. And we need each stakeholder to try and sensitize them. And I'll talk about instances of standards. They do work so much, but you realize that we're not meeting standards as women. And definitely this is where now UNBS comes in to support us and bring down the costs. It has always been the costs sometimes that has been set that the women cannot actually comply. They are hiding to do their business and they're not complying to standards. And we are thinking that if there will be some kind of incentive to allow them to pull up their socks, have right standards, and then they can be aware of starting to ensure that they can be reached out and start paying. We also think that even trade agencies like, URA should bring down certain incentives that can allow women to get into the business arena much more than before, and they're able to access all the opportunities that the government is providing. Mr. Walgemba knows very well that the policy framework is not yet very friendly to the women entrepreneurs. There are still big gender gaps, no responsiveness in terms of the things that are in place. And I'll give you an example. If I'm a working mother, no care centers at work, it means I'm going to have to lose out. And when COVID hit us, the majority of the women were the ones who were more vulnerable to lose their jobs because they look at availability, consistency being at work. I have to go back home very early, I have to breastfeed, I'm pregnant. So those were the soft areas where the women will have to lose their jobs easily compared to our counterparts, the men. And that makes us more fragile, not being very competitive enough into the business as we expect.
Connie Kachihembo, what happens to the other women entrepreneurs that are still operating individually? I'm talking about those business people who are not involved in these cluster groups where you and UDB actually are giving money to the women entrepreneurs. If I'm still working individually, yes, those are the people I wanted you to speak to. What is their fate?
Yes, those women, we are trying to mobilize them. There are quite a number of them who are still, their mindset is still at the level of working alone. And we think if we are to grow the business community, the women business community, this is the time to engage into partnerships. So what you will is doing through our chapters, we are now in 75 districts. And what we're trying to do is to ensure that we reach out and tell them that they have to work together in a team. They have to be in cooperatives. We have so far registered over 38 cooperatives, as you will. And that is basically to enable them to bulk together, to work together. So that issue you asked me, we are addressing it by ensuring that the women are working into cooperatives and they're bulking together. But the most important thing is to see the importance of partnership, just like the men do.
And the fact that we do not have data, Connie Kachihembo, is this also a cause of concern for you, Will?
Sorry.
The fact that we do not have data on the number of women entrepreneurs within this country so that we can ably plan for them, is it a cause for concern for your organization?
Yes, we do acknowledge that we have inadequate data, and right now we are depending on the information that we have collected from our districts where we operate.
How many?
I didn't say that we are about 2.8 million. Our work has been able to impact about 2.8 million women entrepreneurs, and I know we are very many. So one of the things we are trying to do is to see if we can start profiling the women entrepreneurs in this country. We are approaching different partners to enable us get out and profile the business women. so that the government knows the numbers of women entrepreneurs. It's still a gap, definitely. We have never done a census. And I think this is a time to request the government and other stakeholders to see that we get this information right.
All right, thank you very much, Connie Kajihembo. Shall get back to you later on for more deliberations. Let me continue with John Walugembe. John, what is your 2 cents on the matter? We are talking about women entrepreneurs. We're talking about the parish development model, whether it will be the magic bullet that the women need to actually, skyrocket to stardom. The PDM.
No, there's no magic bullet. There's no magic bullet. And
multifaceted approach.
There's no magic bullet. I think the PDM is one of many approaches, and we think that the PDM is different in the sense that it tries to address many pillars. Doesn't just address one. It addresses mindset change, addresses
7
financial
pillars.
inclusion, addresses this, but there's also a risk of overload. Now, sometimes if you try to solve everything with one solution, you end up what we have locally in our SMEs. Some people sell in Uganda here what they call mumbwa. So this mumbwa cures headache, cures malaria, cures COVID, cures this. So we don't want to make PDM into a mumbwa that cures everything. But it will, to some extent, try to address the deficiencies of previous programs. But everything depends on implementation, the who. And we hope that government is sure that it has the necessary mechanism and machinery and skill set at the parish to deliver. Because sometimes if you over-promise and under-deliver, it's a problem. You rather under-promise and over-deliver. So we'll wait and see. We think it's a good idea on paper. We'll wait to see what happens.
John Walugembe is talking about the 491 billion shilling parish development model that is going to see parishes get at least 17 million Uganda shillings in this financial year. In the next financial year, that money shall morph to 100 million Uganda shillings each parish. All right, we shall continue with those deliberations, but we do have a break in the offing. We'll be right back. Do not move a muscle. Keep it here.
Watching Morning at NTV.
Get free small pizza for every large.
Crystal Mineral Water is a sanctuary of refreshment. The quality of each crystal bottle is stringently verified.
Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us right here on the #1 breakfast show in the world, Morning at NTV, without a doubt. John Walugembe is still within our midst. He is the president of the Federation of SMEs, Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. On the other side of the aisle, via Zoom, we do have Connie Kajihembo, the CEO, Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Association Limited. Now, the focal point here we are talking about is the plight of the women entrepreneurs. And before we took a break, we're talking about whether or not the parish development model is the magic bullet that we need to alleviate some of the challenges affecting women and other entrepreneurs alike. But the parish development model seeks to actually transform subsistence, a form of agriculture, all the way to commercialized agriculture, mechanization of the same. Women want to many times have been engaged in agriculture. They are the majority, but they didn't have access to markets to begin with. Issues to do with value addition, issues to do with infrastructure from the farm. How are you going to be traveling all the way to the market to ensure that you sell your produce and it doesn't go bad or destroyed during the journey that you are expediting? All that has been inculcated in the parish development model, and let's interrogate whether or not it is the magic bullet with the advantages and the disadvantages. John Walugembe, it is going to open the women to a new market, locally and outside of this country. The parish development model, we're talking about whether it is the magic bullet.
No, it's not the magic bullet. It's a solution to some of the problems, and it's commendable because it tries to address some of the challenges, try to address production issues. But it's building upon that. If you look at operation wealth creation, in some instances, it has its own successes. If you look at our successes in coffee production, maize production, that's as a result of what operation wealth creation has done. But it hasn't succeeded across all value chains. If you look at issues of storage, processing, marketing, infrastructure, economic services, financial inclusion, these are very many issues that cannot be comprehensively resolved at the parish level, in my view. But it's a good attempt. I think what we are saying is that let us empower our people to try and solve some of their problems.
Because one of the
but we don't want to create very high expectations, because you're setting up, you'll be setting yourselves up, in my view, for failure.
John, we mentioned lack of a market as one of the distressing factors limiting the ability of the women to be actually skyrocketed to stardom. We also did mention the issue of finances, the issue of infrastructure. All this has been inculcated within this PDM. And don't you think...
That's the idea, you know, saying, if you're sick, and I say, I'm going to take you to hospital. That's the aspiration. Me taking you to hospital and you getting healed is what we want. So I'm saying PDM is a good aspiration. It's me telling the patient, I've recognized that you're sick and I intend to take you to hospital.
What measures do we need to put in place right now to ensure that the PDM is a success, John?
I mean, let's make sure that we involve the private sector. Let the PDM not be a purely government-run project.
Bottom-up approach.
It should not be a top-down.
Thank you.
Empower people, make sure that they are entrepreneurs, make sure that there is capacity, not just from the government side, but also from the private sector side. If you don't have capacity at the parish level, these are very many issues to be resolved.
What else?
Let's address the capacity question. Let's also address the financing question. Really, at the moment, because this financial is 17 million, I think it's a bit little, but it's good that we are ramping it up to about 100
yes.
Next year.
So increase the funds.
Let's increase the financing. Let's address capacity gaps, because capacity directly translates into implementation.
Private sector should be involved.
Good ideas fail at the level of implementation.
Indeed.
Number 3, let's allow local ownership, not just the private sector, other stakeholder groups. Let's allow them to own.
All right.
Yes.
All right, that is John Walugembe. Before we leave, Connie Kachihembo is going to be enticing us with details pertaining to the PDM, whether or not it will be a success and what needs to be done to ensure that it is actually running smoothly. Connie Kachihembo, those are your last pointers. Please acquaint us with that information.
Thank you so much. First of all, I do appreciate what my colleague has just said, but for the parish development model to be able to be impactful to the women entrepreneurs, first and foremost, we expect vigorous awareness to be done.
Thank you.
People must know. For us, when you look at the pillar that talks about enterprise development, we see that the women entrepreneur is actually going to benefit highly, but the critical gap usually, even with other programs that the government has implemented in the past, is the level of awareness, and that's one of our mandates. The government has to work with existing associations like us and others, and we reach down to the women and reach down to the grassroots and prepare them. It's always that gap, the preparation of every approach, whatever model that the government brings, when it's not done adequately, definitely we get challenges. UL was part, when we were developing the Uganda Women Development Fund that is within the Ministry of Gender, we did a lot of pressure. We were in the kitchen cooking, but when it went to the ministry, I cannot say how successful it was, but we believe not very many have been impacted adequately. I know some have, but not well. And that is the gap. The government has to work with us. They can't in isolation. They can't work in isolation. The other mandate that we do as you will is the capacity building. This is the point. You cannot, even if you're giving whatever money without the skill, definitely that person will not be able to utilize the funds to your expectation. And we want the government to come and engage us. And we work and help build the capacity of women. Once this money comes down to the grassroots, they're able to utilize it very well to its expectation. And for me, that is where we see that even when you read the document, it's a very fantastic approach, which we are hopeful that to transform our country and improve the livelihood of women at the grassroots level, at every household level. 2, we must strengthen the networks and the linkages to markets. I like that aspect where Gembe says that there is lack of markets. well, we are popularizing these models, the production is going to increase, and then what? Again, this is where we need to have synergy with all the other stakeholders and ensure that we are preparing and linking these women where they're going to be able to share their products or sell them, and also add knowledge. I don't know how best this can be done, but it is very important that we have this conversation as we start rolling out such beautiful models like the Parish Development Model.
Connie Kachi Hembo, the CEO of the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Association Limited. Thank you very much for